Right, it's been a while since we have done an editing tutorial, and look, I even put on a smart shirt for you. I don't know why, I just felt like I wanted to wear a nice shirt and my watch. So I did, because I don't go anywhere, so why not dress up inside? But we're talking about night photography, and if you follow this channel, you know I've never been that good at night photography, but I've been practicing, and then this last shoot in London that I did, if you've watched that video, go watch it, I'll leave it up here. I did that POV, and I've got some really, really nice edits on these night photos for the first time in a while that I've actually been happy with my night photos. So I was like, fuck it, I'll make an editing tutorial on how I actually got these looks. Spoiler alert, I actually just used my new preset pack. So if I go down here, show you the preset, I press it on, pull up the exposure, everything's done for me. Obviously I do some adjustments to it, but we're gonna do it from scratch today. But if you do just want those presets, there's 25 in a pack, you can see them all down here. Obviously they're not all gonna work for this photo, but yeah, you guys have been joining them. I'll put some people's examples on screen and some testimonials. They're in the description. There's a free one you can try as well to give you a taste of what you can expect from the pack. But yeah, they're for street, cars and landscapes. So yeah, that's that. Anyway, moving on to the actual edit. What I've been doing is obviously just lifting up the exposure and making sure it's cropped and in frame to where I want it to. So that's the first thing I've been doing to all my photos at the minute. So this isn't straight. So I'm gonna find something that is straight, which is that little sign up there. You see this up there? That's straight in my head for this image. So I'm gonna line this up with that. So we'll go about there. And then from there, this is too wide, because if we look at this photo, right, this is all just dead space, right? These cars are not that interesting. This is not that interesting. It's a bit boring. All the action is going on up here. So what I'm gonna do is just zoom in, because if you've got a decent camera, it will retain the detail. I actually focused down the street anyway. So what I'm gonna do is, I don't know how much to go. I'm gonna cut the building off and I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna make sure that is center, right? So I wasn't stood on center for this. You see the center lines here? I was stood like to the right, and it's quite a curved street. So I'm gonna center it up with this headlight here. That's gonna be in the middle. And then I'm gonna have this car and this car split in the frame. So we'll press that. Now we're zoomed in. Actually, I'm gonna go lower. Bring the cars lower. So the accent is more on the top of the street, looking down. That's better. So that's straight and that is zoomed in. From there, obviously, we've lifted up the exposure. First thing I like to do is bring down the highlights. I will let you know, I've got a Pro Mist filter on, which is why my highlights look like this. If you want your highlights to look like that, go and buy a Pro Mist filter. I've got a video about a Pro Mist filter if you want to see a good one to buy. But I'm gonna bring the highlights down because it just brings the detail back, but not too much, because then you get, look, that looks a bit stupid. So what I do is I go for like an in-between. So I'm gonna go to the furthest point and then I'm gonna bring it back till it starts to look realistic. So there. And I'm gonna keep it there, because look at these headlights. It just, if you don't know what highlights do, it's a light. So this, for example, here's a shot with the highlights up, and then if I actually pull the highlights down in Premiere, now this is like less luminant, do you know what I mean? So it just brings it back. And if you've got a decent camera and you're shooting raw, which you should be, you can really pull it back so you can see literally the individual LEDs if you're close enough. So look at the rear tail lights on the left of that back of the car. We can bring that down. Now we can see the individual little LED strips if we zoomed right in, but we're just gonna go to about there. This just makes all the lights a lot cooler, especially down here. We've got loads of mini ones now instead of like a big pool of light. Cool, so that's enough about highlights. From there, what I've started to do is, normally you'd go through and you do your basic adjustments, you do all of that sort of stuff. I skip all of that, I go back to that later. I go straight to the colors. So if I come down here to the colors, obviously you've got this new color system here if you want to learn about the new features in Lightroom from the updated version. I've also got a video on that. Some really cool features actually, but I'm just gonna go through and choose the colors that I want in this, that I can see in this picture. So definitely the reds we're gonna start with. And what I'd like to do is make them look a bit richer, is the way I can explain it. So you could pull it to the right, that'd make them more orange and like lighter. I like to pull them to the left because it makes them more like cherry red and just looks cooler. Like that red on that tail light there looks so much cooler than that orange. It just looks more aggressive. So I'm gonna pull that maybe don't wanna go too far because then it starts to go pink. But I'm gonna go about there. So it's quite out there. And then in the distance, you can see we've got some greens, we've got some blues, and we've got some yellows. So we're gonna go to the oranges here, because let's see what we can affect. So that's like these buildings here. All these lights are getting affected now. So again, I'm gonna go more to that pink, but not a lot, because it is gonna start to affect the red that's already been affected once. Then the same with the yellows. We'll bring that down. You know what? I'm actually going to boost the yellows up. Yeah, we'll boost the yellows up. And then greens, there's not a lot of them. But we're going to go to the darker side of whatever color, basically. We just want the richer version of each color. No blues really in there. No purples really in there. I just move them and see what moves really in the photo. So that's the main ones are the reds and the yellows and the oranges. So we've darkened them all down, made them all rich. Now we can actually decide which ones we want to be the main focus. So if I didn't want the reds to be the main focus, which they are right now, then I could just bring them down. Do you know what I mean? And I might slightly bring them down, only slightly. And then the oranges I'm going to boost because they're actually a bit further away, and that's going to fill in because all the oranges are like the main thing that's lighting the street, like all the street lamps and stuff. They're the most prominent color. That's going to fill the image the most. So I'm actually going to let you see if I boost those up, bring them out, boost those up, bring them out. It's filling in all this sort of space in the sky with that light. So I'm actually going to boost them up to bring them a little bit more into the picture. From there, yellows, I'm going to desaturate the yellows just because I don't really want them going crazy. I'll boost these colors because they're not that prominent anyway. And then what I can do is, because I boosted the yellows, I can come to the luminance, which is basically how bright the colors are. So now I can boost the reds up even more, make them really luminant, or I can bring them right down. Obviously that looks stupid. I'm going to bring them down because when you bring them down, it brings down that haze that's around them slightly. And then I'm going to boost the oranges just to get rid. Oh, maybe I'll bring them down actually. I was going to boost them, but actually, because if we look at these headlights here, we can actually bring that detail back in them. Yeah, let's bring those down a little bit. So that's the colors. That's what I like to do, because now the image is kind of set for the colors in it. Now I can just do some stuff around it, which I'll show you in a second with the tone curve and things, to bring some shadows and stuff into the rest of it. But that's the main colors done. I don't have to worry about that now. So now we go into the basic adjustments. So I just quickly do this just for the photo. So to be honest, I don't really care about this being in it. So I'm going to check those edges and I'm going to bring the shadows in so they're just about, it's also going to actually give me a little bit of a gradient on its own. I've got about there. So basically normal, it's just in the middle where it was. Blacks, again, that's going to bring a bit more darkness into it. I'll bring them down slightly, but you can't really see them. And then texture, I'm actually going to soften it, because when you've got photos like this, because it's all quite dreamy and there's like highlights going everywhere, I feel like it's not a place to add texture. I feel like if I was really close to this car and I got it dead in focus and dead sharp, then I would add texture to make the car look really crisp. Because we're quite far away, I just kind of want this to be like a nice glazed over, soft light into the image. So I'm going to bring the texture down and the clarity. And then if you wanted to dehaze, that's basically like, you see this haze coming off all the lights, you can get rid of that because it's raining as well by pulling down that, and it's going to eliminate it. But I'm going to leave that for now. Maybe I'll add a little bit. Bosh. Vibrance, I'm going to bring it up slightly, and then I'm going to desaturate it slightly, because what I like to do, if you've watched any of my other tutorials, is I like to boost all the colors individually, but then overall just bring the saturation down, as opposed to just bringing the saturation down without boosting those colors individually. Then it would just make everything darker. But because we've boosted them, we can now bring the whole image down a little bit and it will sync it up nicely, if that makes sense. Probably doesn't make sense, but it makes sense in my head. So this is where everyone uses the tone curve, right? I don't really like using it. I do in certain situations, but I actually don't use it that much. I know everyone uses it and I try to copy people that do it. And I get what like it's for, but I prefer using these. I just think I can pinpoint what I want with these color wheels so much more than I can with the tone curve. And they're basically the same thing, let's be honest. They're the same fucking thing. They're just in circles rather than a tone curve, and I can see what they're called. So this is where I actually take like these edges and these parts and give them that fade across, where you see those photos where people have that color that's sort of faded across. This is where I get it. So I want that sort of blue, darkish tint to the background, or maybe even an orange, pinkish sort of tint to the background. So you see already it's changing all these areas because these are the shadows. So this is actually changing the whole tint we've got now. Got a hair in my mouth. What the fuck? This is changing the whole tint to the image now. And it's just a lot easier. So I could go with the orange, or I could go with the greens, or I could go with the pinks, but I'm gonna go with the blues because it's raining and I want it to be that sort of cold look anyway. So we're gonna knock, how far can we go? Let's have a look. We're gonna go about there. So now these areas, as opposed to being orange from these lights, now they've got a blue tint to them. Blue tint, looks cool. And then I'm gonna go to the midtones. The midtones, I actually don't know what it is. I think it's kind of like, I don't know, like not the shadows, it's not the highlights, but it's like the colors of, I don't know, but I like to just move it around and see where I like to put it. So for me, I like to not copy what I've already done with the shadows. I want to slightly counter it. So I'm gonna add a little bit of pink and purple in there. So we'll go about there. And then the highlights is obvious. I know what those are, which is just the actual lights. So this is where we can just change, but I don't touch this because obviously we've already done that with the individual colors. We've chosen what we want them to look like. So this main thing for me was just to get this blue tint into the image with the color wheels instead of using the tone curve, because I can't be asked to try and figure that out. Then, obviously, we've got the photo where we want it to. If I could expose it more if I wanted to, but I'm not really going to. I'm actually just gonna have it about there. But obviously, we've got noise, because I took this at like, what ISO did I take this at? 800. So there's a little bit of noise in there. But if I go to the new feature, which we should all know about by now, because it's absolutely insane, and that's the denoise. This is gonna choose, AI is gonna basically get rid of all the noise, like completely get rid of all the noise. You could choose how much you want it to get rid of it. So I'm gonna go to 64, and then you can see there it's gonna enhance. So that's before, that's after, that's before, that's after. It's crazy. But it's also actually gonna give you that sort of soft texture to the material as well. So take that into consideration. The more you do, the more it's gonna make it like softer and less detailed. Whoa. Okay, there we go. So yeah, it's softened it out. There's still some there because obviously it can't get rid of all of it, but it's definitely a lot softer. And now when you look at the image from a distance, there's not as much there now. It just looks like there's like a bit of smoky haze coming across the photo. So that is that. That's kind of all the colors and the things to get the photos and bring the night photography to life. All right, so that's kind of what I do. But then from there, we could just leave it there. But obviously, to all my photos, if you want to make them look a little bit better than everyone else's, you should add some adjustments. And the ones that I do is normally a linear gradient. So you see this part down here, I don't want this to be that bright. I want it to be a bit darker. So I'm going to pull a linear gradient up, and then I'm just going to pull the exposure of that ground down. I just need to be careful because I am affecting the highlights of the car. We'll go about there. That looks good for me. And then I'm going to do the same for the side here, a bit of an angle downwards. We'll just bring the exposure down again. And I know you can use a radial gradient and you can just invert it and affect everything around it, but I don't want to affect the sky really. I actually kind of like the sky being that color and having that bit of haze to it. I just want to get these areas on the edges darkened out a bit to bring the focus to this point here, but I actually don't mind this bit up here. This, what even is that? Spaceship, don't know. 3 radial gradients, the floor, the right and the left, just to bring the focus into the middle. And then obviously we've done all our adjustments, and you could go up to the top here and you could adjust your general temperature of the photo. I could actually bring that maybe a little bit more to the blue. I should have done that at the start actually. We'll go about there. But that's it, that's really it. You just start with the exposure, straighten it up, crop it into where you want it to, and then go straight to the colors. Select all the colors that you can see in the image, and then from there add your adjustments. So here, Bosch 1, 2, 3, add your adjustments in to make it look a bit more 3D. And then obviously we've got these photos here, the same sort of lights in all of these photos, so I can just press this, hold control, select these two, and then you're gonna press sync, and then we're gonna copy those settings to the rest of the photo shoot, which is what I always do with my presets. I just choose one of my presets from my V2 pack, which was classic for this edit, and then I just sync it across the whole shoot, and then just do a couple of adjustments, job done, the whole thing's finished. But now, yeah, obviously if we go to this one now, we've got all those settings that we've just done, so you see all the colors, they're the cherry reds, the blues are where we chose them to, and then all I needed to do is just add some exposure, and then I can add the individual adjustments to my night photos, but keeping that same vibe throughout the whole photo shoot. All right, so that's how I do it. That's how you could bring your night photos to life. Ta-da. Go watch my other videos, go subscribe. Remember, free preset, all my gear, and my actual V2 pack is down in the description. Cheers for 1,000 subscribers. Let's keep this shit going. Yeah, that's it. There's your weekly editing tutorial. We're back.